Welcome back to the She Does This podcast. I'm Jordy Lucas. I hope you've had an amazing week. If you're in Melbourne like me, you've been in lockdown for the last 5 days, but it's been announced this morning that we're going to be released tonight. And I realised this last week that I have a bit of PTSD from lockdown last year. For those that aren't aware, us in Melbourne, Victoria, we had a lockdown that was initially meant to be 6 weeks but lasted for over 100 days, which I think is why so many of us had such an intense reaction to this lockdown. But we're out of it as of tonight, which is amazing. This week on the site, I share some advice from some of my mum friends on getting more organised because I need all the help I can get. And we've also got some tips for you on maximising your office space. Now, this week's episode is all about self-care, which is something I think so many of us need to get better at. We're in this age where so many of us are trying to do all the things and we put so much pressure on ourselves to nail mum life, work life, and we so often put the wants and needs of everybody else before our own. Last year in lockdown, I was having all these mini burnouts almost every week because I was spreading myself so thinly across all the aspects of my life, and I really wanted to get better at that this year. So I jumped on a Zoom call with health and wellness expert Lola Berry to chat all things self-love and self-care. Lola, thank you so much for joining us. How has 2021 kicked off for you?
I'm so lucky because I've just moved to Byron Bay. So we were in Melbourne or Victoria for a lot of lockdown, and we were in the surf coast. So we stayed in Torquay for a lot of it. And then kind of as things started to open, my boyfriend's like, should we just move to Byron? And so we did it. We moved to Byron like on the 1st of December. So we still feel like we're in that honeymoon phase of moving to a new place.
I feel like the whole COVID situation has forced people to become more spontaneous and do things that they dreamt of doing but were held back for whatever reason.
Totally. I completely agree with you. And I think you get a really clear value check, like, hey, what do I really want to do? Where do I really want to go? And for me, I love traveling. It's a huge part of my life. And it's making me realize, hey, that's still a huge part that I want to make sure that when it's safe to travel, that's something that I embrace. And my boyfriend's Italian. I'm like, we are going to Italy, my friend. You get clear on what you really want.
Definitely. I want to talk all about mindfulness, self-care with you because I feel like you're a real guru on all of that. But I want to first know, how did you get your start in health and wellness, and where does that passion come from?
Oh man, it feels like, so I'm 35. I started in morning TV when I was 23 on a show that most people have no idea what it's, because it was so long ago. It was called 9 a.m. with David and Kim. So it was like one of those, you'd see your brekkie show and then you'd see your second like that,
Yeah.
I call it the mums and bubs show, like the show where the mums are at home feeding kids and need something cool to watch. And because I started off doing YouTube, and I had a YouTube channel called Fruits and Roots, and it was just veggies and hacks about health, because I was studying nutritional medicine at the time. And I'm not lying when I say this to you, seriously, someone thought I had a porno on YouTube because of the name Fruits and Roots. So very humble beginnings, my friend. But I got my first break in morning TV. As far as how I got into it, I was always just a health nerd. My dream at school was to be the next Kate Blanchett, as you don't mind if I do. And I dropped out of drama school. I remember a year and a half in, they're 99% of you are going to become drama teachers. And I was like, whoa, I don't know that I love that stat. And then I dropped out, became a DJ, as you do, and then started realizing that I'm really passionate about health and nutrition, and then went on to study nutritional medicine. So I got my bachelor degree, and then I was so inspired by Steve Irwin, which most people laugh at when I say. I just loved his passion, and I loved the way every Sunday he'd have a show where he'd just be educating the audience. And I just saved up and bought a camera and started a YouTube channel about health.
And I'm guessing, so this was 2003, you were saying, with David and Kim on the morning show. That's pre-Instagram influencer
totally
world.
Jordy, it's the MySpace days. Do you remember?
Yeah,
Do you remember
I
MySpace?
do.
No Twitter,
Yeah.
no Facebook, no Insta, definitely no
Yeah.
Snapchat, no Clubhouse, the new thing that I'm still getting my head around.
Yeah.
None of that. So yeah, it was just, and I got on with a cold call. Like I literally just called up to get on, and
That is incredible.
very old school. Very old school.
I love it. So tell me about self-care for you. I feel like another thing that 2020 taught a lot of us was the importance of self-care. And for me, it was I realized that since becoming a mum, I've really not cared for myself. And it's not just about nutrition and eating the right things and exercising. So what does self-care look like for you?
Well, you're an amazing young mama bear, and I think I can't I can't at all come from a mum's perspective, but I have mates that have got kids, and I'm like, how on earth do you guys do it? You're running on zero
Mm.
sleep. My friend goes, literally, she's had a bub who's probably 6 months old now. And she's like, literally, Lola, my life is like naps when I can get it.
Yeah.
Caffeine and sugar is kind of like the tricks to getting through. And so, yeah, I really take my hat off to mama bears, because I just think you guys are superheroes. But as far as like for me, it's yoga, it's nature. My favorite word in the entire world is biophilia, which means the healing power of Mother Nature on human beings. So
Wow.
very lucky to be living in Byron Bay. So this morning before our podcast, I did the lighthouse walk. And so I'm just literally amongst nature for an hour in the morning, and you see wallabies and you see big water dragons really close, like right next to you. So nature's a big one, and it's a real non-negotiable for me. I like to move in some way every day, whether it be an online yoga class, because COVID time, I joined an online yoga school, and I'm hooked now because I can do it any time of the day. I don't need to find a park at a yoga studio.
Yeah.
It's great. And you can kind of juggle it. Like if you only got a 10-minute window, you can just get 10 minutes in. It all kind of counts, you know?
Yeah.
So many things. Like this is going to sound like a really weird hack for like self-care, but like because studying the acting stuff, I love watching a movie and going to my boyfriend and I went to the movies like 2 weeks ago, and in Byron it's like a palace cinema, so it's like those old school kind of like artsy cinemas, and there's a great movie on at the moment called Promising Young Woman.
Oh, I'm dying
Carey
to see
Mulligan.
that.
Oh, do it yourself. And the soundtrack. The
Yes.
soundtrack is insane. Do you know that the writer director, I think her name's Emerald Fennell, she sent the scripts to the actors with a playlist, so they had to listen to a playlist while they were learning. I love it. I love all that behind the scenes stuff. Anyway, for me, going to the movies is self-care because it's giving back to myself. It's escapism. It's watching something creative that might have an impact on the viewer. So hence why I think you actors are amazing, because I love that you can affect people's hearts in a movie or a TV show. I love that. But it can be little things. Like I've been working with Lego, and they've just brought out an adult kind of like mindfulness Lego. So my boyfriend and I have been like having a glass of vino and building a bonsai together. So it could be little things, but as long as it's like, you know, I have this awesome saying from a book called The Peaceful Warrior, and it's like, what time is it now? Where am I here? Who am I this moment? So for me, self-care is about getting present, and it can be dunking yourself in the ocean. It can be going for a walk. It can be having an awesome cup of coffee with a mate, you know?
Yeah. I think I completely agree with all of that. And I think a lot of women suffer with putting everybody ahead of ourselves. And I think this is something that mums deal with, but I think it's inherently a female thing that we do. We put our partners first, we put our friends first, and we have this fear of saying no. Why do you think that is, that we have this issue with people pleasing and not being able to say no, when sometimes we can be saying yes, but to our own detriment?
Totally. And mate, like I think as a mom, it's a whole nother level, because you've got this little bambino that is numero uno, really. And then, yeah, your priorities kind of slip back, you know, into the background. Like the amount of friends that I've got that have had kids that are like, oh my God, I haven't been to a yoga class just because there is no chance for me to go. And they're like, I'm just craving it so bad. Whereas for me, I'm like, oh, do I want to go to a 4:30 session? Do I want to go to the city? Like I'm quite selfish with my self-care, but I'm also really big on therapy and mental health. And I've got a therapist, and he's really taught me, like, by saying no to others, you're really honoring yourself. And if you want to be the best that you can be, then you're going to have to say no. And one cool thing that I learned from my friend, as soon as she actually fell pregnant, became a mum, she said, I care less about what people think of myself. And I think that's quite cool. Like, I've always got caught up in, oh, I don't want to upset that person because what if they think that I'm flaky, or what if they think, whereas you kind of got to let that go. Life's way too short, right? So I think it's about kind of like dropping the care factor of what other people think of you and just going, what's best for me? And like, in your case, or in a mum bear's case, what's best for me and my famo, and me and my boyfriend. We live here in the hinterland in Byron Bay. I'm like, my filter each day is like, what are we going to do together? Because we're teammates. And then, and, you know, and what's going to serve us, and then everything else kind of like filters out from there. But you got to put yourself first to be able to give more to others, I believe.
Yeah. I said this last week in our episode, that becoming a mother has empowered me to walk away from bullshit and negativity. And I don't know why it took becoming a mum to do that, because it's so empowering when you just walk away from bullshit. But why it took me to have a child to get to that point, it's frustrating that you put up with crap for so long, and it takes something like that to shake you into thinking, I really don't need to be putting up with this.
I think as well, stakes are high for you. So you've got another human being that you're in charge of. And like, if something happens to you, then there's no one there there's half there to look after this human being. And I think for me, like I said, I don't have a kid, but like there are points in my career where I've had to like really go all in and dive really deep, and no one's believed in it except for me. It's been scary. Or I've invested in a project and I'm like, oh my God, I could lose all my money here. Like, and when you dive all in with something, you quickly go, oh, I'm in this for the long game. And for me to be in something for the long game, there's going to be sacrifice. And so that's when you get really comfortable, just like anything that's not going to get you to where you need to be, you kind of get really comfy at kind of like going, no, thank you, but no.
Yeah.
You know?
So you run Lola Coffee, you've got your own podcast, you're an acting student, you're a yoga teacher, and you've got sort of your personal brand on Instagram and your website. How do you maintain, I mean, I feel like the word balance, I don't believe in balance. Personally, I feel like when you're working for yourself, it's like it's enjoyable for it to consume you sometimes. But how do you create some sort of balance in your life so that you don't burn out?
I have to give full credit to my boyfriend. He's like the rock. So he's super calm and he'll call out all my bullshit. Like, he'll be like, yo, you're being a dick. Stop doing that. And I'm like, yeah. And I'll sit down. I'll be like, and he goes, you know, I'm right. And I'm like, yep, you're right. Or he'll be like, the thing that he really helps me with is he's like, you're stressing out over something that's not going to matter in a week's time, in a day's time. So, and I've got kind of like that A-type personality. Like, I definitely lean into a bit OCD with, I'll worry about things a lot. And he's like, oh my God, that does not matter in the big picture at all. Stop obsessing over it. So he's great at calling out my kind of stuff. But as far as like having balance, I agree with you. Like, when you run your own businesses, like I write books too, and I've just delivered a manuscript. And so like there were days where you're just like writing for like 18 hours a day. Like it's pretty full on, like really full on. There are moments. And I'm about to start the editing phase. And I'm like, oh, here we go again. Strap in. You know, and there's no balance there. You just, you click in and you're just like, you're locked away in hermit mode. And then you come out of it. And you know, I think the balance comes in different forms, and it kind of comes when you're like, oh, okay, well, I do live a lot like an actor in that, like, I'll have a gig and then I won't have a gig for 2 weeks, and then I'll have a gig, or I'll be doing, because now I do acting, like I'll be doing a week of self-tapes and then nothing for 2 weeks. And you don't hear, if you don't get it, you just don't hear. It's like crickets, right? So you get really used to kind of like feeling ready and just being like, okay, you know, I'm only probably going to get a few shots of this. I may as well give it my all. So yeah, I don't know how to answer. I agree with you, because I don't think balance comes easy, but I think it comes in different ways. And for me, as long as I've got those self-care kind of checkpoints, I'm okay.
Yeah. So what would be, if someone is, you know, really struggling, perhaps struggling after the shit show that was 2020, they want to use this year as a time to invest in themselves more. What are some simple, easy ways to just nourish yourself each day that we could just start with?
Yeah, cool. So first of all, like, this is going to sound like you're reading a self-help book, but like, only have people around you that are good eggs. Cut out the dingoes. Dingoes are my word for numpties. You know, like, and you know, when you're hanging out with someone, you're either going to feel good or you're going to feel like they're emotional vampiring you, you know? Cut out the ones that are no good. And like, I know it's taken you to be a mum to get that, you know, ability to be like, no, don't care, no thanks. But like, people listening to this might be like, okay, great, I want to start acting that way. I don't want to figure that out later. I want to figure it out now. So like, cut the stuff that's not serving you. Hang around people that make you feel good. Be honest, be real. Like, it is so cool. Like, I can sit in a meeting now, because I don't really care what people think. I can sit in a meeting, like a management meeting or something, and now I can answer without even thinking about what I'm going to say, because there is no filter. I'm just like, what you see is what you get. And it's very refreshing, but also doesn't zap your energy if you're just real and you're just yourself. So, you know, drop any facades, like, just be you. Like, there's no other you kind of thing. And but you got to cut, the energy's got to be right. You want to be around people that fill your cup, not people that kind of like take from you. That's really, really important as a creative as well, I think.
Yeah. Are you into journaling, gratitude? I know there's a lot around gratitude and all that sort of stuff. Is that something that you're into?
I tried a gratitude journal during lockdown. I was like, all right, here we go. Didn't float my boat. I did it for a week, and I was like documenting.
It doesn't do it for me either.
Just don't, like, I'll be on a walk and be like, oh my goodness, how lucky am I that I'm, you know, healthy enough and well enough to be able to walk, and like, I have those moments. And I was teaching in Sydney last week for a Lego mindfulness event. I was teaching yogas, and I was like, oh my God, I'm working again. I'm teaching real life humans, not via Zoom. I'm teaching people in the flesh. How amazing is this? Like, I'll have moments like that, but no, I don't journal, and I don't gratitude, but I am a checklist girl. So I will, like, I'm a Virgo, OCD, like I said earlier, and love that I keep slipping that one in there, but I'll make a list before I go to bed for what I want to do the next day.
Yeah.
And it just keeps me accountable. It keeps me on top of things. When you're your own boss, like you said, there's a lot of kind of like, you're juggling a few things all at once. Yeah. And so if I've got a list of what I need to be on to the next day, I don't miss anything. And so that kind of lets me wind down at night too. It's a good hack. I love it.
And then when you tick things off, you feel like you've accomplished something as well.
Oh, get ready for this. You're going to love it. So do you know the brain responds better? You get a higher amount of dopamine jacking up in your brain if you have a little box and color it in, more than if you tick or cross through. So now.
Really? Okay, I'm going to start coloring in that box.
Right? So draw a box and then get a highlighter or another color and color it in when you. And I'll sometimes put things on the list that I know I've already done just for fun.
Get dressed, color it in.
Washing. Yes, color it in. Make dinner, color it in. Yes.
So a few listener questions. First one was, what made you want to start acting?
Because it petrifies me. So what actually happened was, in all honesty, I did an audition co-anchoring a show for Channel 7. So I was in Melbourne, went to the Channel 7 studios, and I auditioned, and they kind of like subbed in and out different female and male hosts to co-anchor together. And I remember I was petrified of auto cue. So auto cues, when they have the script and it's rolling and you're reading it as you go. And I was petrified. So I learnt the script by rote. Like I learnt it. I was like, great, that's one less thing I need to worry about. And the moment I sat down next to Limo, who was obviously like a natural, like total pro, they're like, we're going to switch your scripts. And I was like, oh, dang it. I've learnt the script and they've just switched me. And so like it was fine. I was thrown, but I remembered thinking, you need a skill up here, Lola. There's something missing. You really want to do this. Like it felt so fun to be filming on set and da-da-da.
Yeah.
And I got tested against other people and I could feel when they were anxious. I could feel when I was anxious. And I was like, okay, you need to get better at this. And so I just called an acting school in Melbourne. And I was like, hey, can I enroll into your TV presenting course? This is what I do. This is what I want to get better at. And they're like, it's full number one. Have you thought about acting? And I was like, no. I was like, I would rather swim with great white sharks. Thanks very much. And they're like, that's a really good sign. And I started, like I did a short little beginners course and I didn't stop training. It's been 3 years now. And I've done I've then gone to 16th Street and done my training. And now I actually start up again in Byron next week. And I've got an agent now. So it's kind of exciting, but I do it because it scares me. And it's a bit like podcast hosting. You're aware of like what camera is on. You're aware of where the auto cue is. You're aware of where the guest is. And you're kind of like self-producing all at the one time.
Totally. Yeah.
Right? Whereas acting, it's like something creative and electric is within you that is bigger than you, right? And it's like you're just a vessel to like I did a Tennessee Williams play as part of my 16th Street training. And I remember I got off and spoke to my beautiful teacher. Shout out to Ian Sinclair. He totally changed my life. And I said, oh my God, I get it. There's electricity running through our veins. I've never felt this before. I get it. And he looked at me and he like had his little hand on his heart because it was my last day there. He's like, I'm really going to miss you. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to miss you. So one is art to me and one is like awesome producing. And I love them both very dearly and equally.
Yeah. I think the thing to me, they're two different beasts. The acting, I've spent my for up till about I was 5. I was on Neighbours, then I went over to LA, and I've spent a big part of my life being held to ransom by corporates and producers, deeming if I'm worthy for a job or not. And it's made me slightly bitter towards the industry. But when you're right, when you get that creative and you're in that moment, it's amazing. But the thing I love about producing the podcast and doing what I'm doing now, and I'm sure you get this as well, is that you're the boss. You call the shots creatively. And so, there's a real difference in between the two for me. There's something empowering about producing your own content. Totally. That's amazing. That feeling is incredible.
Yeah. And they're, like you said, they're completely different. And I'm a huge fangirl of yours, so I remember you from the Neighbours days. So, but like I get it. Like having you and I both spoke before about beautiful Ash Brewer. Like she told me about the hours you guys did at Neighbours and like how quickly the script you're learning scripts and you could be shooting like up to like 18 scenes the next day more. Like and so the pressure is high. That's probably a little bit different to that romantic story I just shared of like beautiful Southern American play, like very, very different. But yeah, I do love the idea of like you just being like obviously very prepared, but then really open to just being present in the moment and whatever comes. I love the feeling of that.
Another question we had come through was, what was the biggest lesson that you learned from 2020?
To take the hits as a gift. So I had some big hits. At the very beginning of March, I was heading to LA to activate my green card. I was on my way to the airport. Yeah. And it just, the flight wouldn't confirm because it was in the middle of each day was getting worse and worse and worse. And then I had flights booked for 2 parts of June that both just got cancelled on me. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is such a nightmare. And I didn't want to lose my green card because anybody that knows anything about immigrating to America, it's really hard. and I'd spent so much money getting it. And it's what's led me to come to Byron. And I now go later in the year. Like I'll go this year, but later in the year. And yeah, it'll be scary and I'm absolutely petrified, but I'll go at a much better time than it would have been if I had to go last year. So it's like taking the hits as a gift. And I would never have been living in Byron Bay. And now we've got a base here that we intend on keeping here. You know, like I wouldn't have been like, oh, wow, one of my homes is built here, you know, like that would never have happened. And I would never have got my next book deal. I wasn't planning on writing a new book. And I got a call from a different publisher I hadn't worked with. And they're like, yo, we want to talk more about what you're passionate about and mental health and self-care. And I'm like, okay, no recipes. And they're like, because usually I write nutrition books and they're like, nah, just self-care, mental health. And I'm like, sign me up. So like I wrote a manuscript in 2020. So I think for me, it's like take the hits as gifts.
Yeah. So when do you go back to LA? You're going this year?
Yeah, I have to go in the middle of the year. Yeah.
Wow.
Scary.
And then with the green card, you have to spend 6 months of each year there to maintain it. So what are you going to do in the States?
I'll do half here in Byron and half in America. And I'll be starting from the ground up. So I'll probably just enroll straight into acting school and keep working on my show reel and go to auditions, then come back here. But we love here as well. So it'll be a 50-50 split. I'll be in both territories.
Amazing. Yeah. So the last question that we had was, and this is very broad, I want to be healthier, but honestly don't have any idea where to start. Can you help?
Cool. No, that's good. That's good. So these are going to sound like really basic answers, but like it's just good to check in. So the first thing I say to any of my nutrition clients, because I still take my nutrition clients via Zoom, that all kicked off during COVID too. That would turn into be a bit of a gift in the end. And I just like, first of all, water, number one. The first sign of dehydration is hunger. So you want to be hydrated. The brain is like 60% fluid. Like we need to be hydrated. Got my water here. And you want, it's about 1 liter for every 22 kilograms you weigh. So most people are like, oh my God, I need to be drinking 3 liters a day. And it's like, yeah, but don't go from 1 glass to 3 liters. You're going to feel so sick and you won't be able to stop peeing. So just build up really, really slowly. The other one is sleep. Like, again, a really easy one, but like every hour before midnight is the equivalent to 2 hours after midnight. So the earlier, the better, especially in Chinese medicine. Be mindful when you eat. Like with this, we've been talking about mindfulness a fair bit, but like enjoy food mindfully, like enjoy it with someone that you love and like notice the smells, the texture. Is there any music on? Like I get it's different for you with like a Bambino and you're like, quick, I've got a small window to make this happen. But even laugh at that. You know what I mean? Like that, you won't get that period back of your life ever again, you know? So, you know, like I just go with it and
embracing
laugh at
it. Yeah,
totally. The peas being thrown on the ground or sweet potato being smashed on something. But yes, I think be present and mindful when it comes to food. Don't deprive yourself at all. If I said you can't eat a chocolate brownie ever again, you'll go out and binge and eat like 6 right now. So don't deprive yourself. Drop the guilt because it's just a really painful treadmill that I have definitely been on before. I have a history of eating disorders. So I would just say definitely drop the guilt, enjoy things mindfully with people that you love and like just have fun with your health, make it fun and exercise. Don't do something you don't like. You never see me in a spin class because mate, I don't like spin. So do exercise you like. I love yoga. I love nature. So I'm either in the ocean or walking or yogs, you know, I just think find something that you love and that's a really good one. And an accountability buddy always helps. Definitely when I'm setting my alarm really early to do a walk. Yeah.
Amazing. Lola, thank you so much for joining us today. We've covered so much. All the best for 2021 and good luck in LA.
Oh, mate, I was listening to your podcast yesterday and you were talking about how confronting and lonely LA was. And I was like, so I was like, do I skip 15 seconds?
Maybe not the episode for you to listen to before you go.
I'm thinking I'm going to try and do Hawaii anyway for this first year. Like,
amazing.
Like we've just got to, like, that's the thing about 2020. I'm like, I've just got to be okay with things not looking how I expected them to look. Like, I thought I was going to move there. Now I'm like, it's just going to be a base. Yeah. How cool. How lucky.
Yeah. Amazing. And that is so lucky, isn't it? That's so amazing. Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to see your adventures and see what you get up to.
Feeling is mutual, my friend. You have got a new fan of your podcast. I gobbled up so many episodes with my boyfriend yesterday. So thanks for putting this out there. I'm a big fan.
Thank you so much. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you.
Big love.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of She Does This. I hope it's inspired you to perhaps prioritize yourself for once and look after you. So do something for yourself this week and let me know how good it feels. As always, if you're loving what you're hearing, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Stay in touch on socials, and I will chat with you all next week.